Good morning. This is William Knoll with Equus Financial, and I'm pleased to announce I have Bill Martin with us, VP of Advanced Markets with Equus. How are you this morning, Bill?
I'm great, William. Thanks for having me on today.
You're quite welcome. Glad to be able to interview you. With no further ado, let's go ahead and get started. As you know, the stock market's been pretty strong for the past 10 years. And people have enjoyed it, but there's speculation out there that things may change. Where could people go with their investments today where they can get still a decent return on their money, but have some safety as well?
You know, that's a great question. And it's one of the things that I think keeps a lot of folks up at night, because at Equus Financial, we work primarily with middle America. You know, we work with blue collar and white collar middle America. We certainly have some affluent folks that we work with, but the general population of clientele that we service is middle America. And those are the folks that are the most nervous and concerned about what's going on in the stock market right now. It's been a heck of a ride. And a lot of people look at their statements, William, and they say, oh my gosh, you know, I have done really well over the last 10 years. And, you know, I want to keep letting this ride for as long as I can. And other folks look at that and go, you know what? I'm nervous that at some point, all good things come to an end. Every bull market over time has ended and been followed by a bear market. And then, of course, by another bull market. It's a cycle that happens with investing. And how do I make sure that if I decide to remove some of the risk from my current portfolio, how do I make sure that I don't miss out on the gains if the market continues to thrive for months or even years after I reduce my risk? Because when you look at the financial alternatives to the stock market for safety, typically you're looking at fixed rate investments that just aren't paying anything right now in this interest rate environment that we're in. You know, savings accounts are paying, you know, hardly anything. CDs are paying hardly anything. So, you know, and then people say, well, you know, I've heard you should put your money in bonds if you want to, you know, kind of provide a hedge against what's going on in the stock market. And what's scary about that, William, is that with bonds, the price of bonds works the inverse of interest rates. So if interest rates are really low, bond prices are going to be high. And if interest rates start to go back up, which, I mean, they have to at some point, right? They can't get any lower hardly. If interest rates start to go back up, bond prices are going to drop, which means bonds aren't that safe haven that people thought were out there before. So that's where the solution that we like to look at is called insurance industry indexing. And that typically includes indexed universal life products and indexed annuity products, depending on factors with the client and their situation and how they're funding it. But you know, what's beautiful about indexed products and the strategy of insurance industry indexing is that they allow you to share in the gain of the market in the years where the market goes up. Now, you may not make everything that the market gets in those good years. You know, depending on what the market goes up, you might only get 80% of what the market does. You might only get 50% of what the market does. But here's the beauty of it. In those years where the market goes down, you know, think about 2008, where the S&P 500 dropped 38%. Okay. If the market goes down, you don't lose a penny in an indexed product. When I'm talking about insurance industry indexing in that strategy, there's a floor of 0. So because there's a floor, there has to be a ceiling. And that's why you don't get to take advantage of all of the gains in the good years, but you also don't lose a penny in the bad years. And, you know, think about it. For example, you know, if something goes down 40% in value, like the S&P just almost did in 2008, it's got to go back up 67% just to break back to even, just to get back to even. And so these products allow you, if you kind of think about what the typical stock market, graph looks like, it's a line that shows ups and downs, and it looks like a roller coaster. Well, these index products look more like a stair step. You're going to go up in those years where the market's doing well, but if the market goes down, you just stay flat. You don't go down at all. You just stay flat. And then as soon as the market starts going back up again, you start moving back up again. It looks more like a staircase. And so that's a nice strategy. I don't recommend that anybody put all of their eggs in one basket, but it's a nice hedge for people that are saying, I want right now to lock in some of those gains that I've made in the stock market. I can't stomach any losses if the market takes a tumble, which it very well could here in the near future. We never know. And it gives you that place where you can earn a decent rate of return, but never, ever, ever share in those losses and have a sleepless night during those periods of time like we've seen in 2008 and all the way back into the early 2000s when the tech bubble burst and 9/11 happened. And then fast forward to 2020 when we had the pandemic start and the stock market crashed. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of people worried about their money. With index products, that's never the case. And the reason for that, people say, well, that sounds great. I like the idea of making money in those years where the market goes up and not losing anything in the years where the market goes down. That sounds great. But how can they do that? That almost sounds too good to be true. Is that really true? Well, the way that they do it is in the way that they invest the money that people are investing into these products. So the insurance company takes the money, and 95% of it is going into very safe investments like investment grade corporate bonds and government securities and places where the insurance company is going to get a predictable rate of return, but nothing spectacular with the interest rates being where they are right now. But then what they do, William, typically is they take 5% of the money that they receive from the customers, and that they go take and they buy in options on different indexes that they might be tracking, like the S&P 500, or some of them have proprietary indexes that have been created by Barclays Bank or BNP Paribas over in France. And so then what happens is if the 5% that's buying options does well, that allows them to get a nicer gain than what the fixed rates are returning. But if that 5%, if the market goes down and they lose that 5% that they invested in the options and it's gone, well, then the 95% that was invested in the safe is going to make back the amount of money that was lost in the 5% that was in risky. And that's how they hedge that. That's why there has to be a cap or a ceiling if there's going to be a floor. If they're going to give you a 0% rate of return, they have to have a ceiling on what they can give you. And that ceiling will vary from product to product. As I mentioned earlier, it could be 50% of what the market does. It could be 80% of what the market does. It could be 90% of what the market does. Depends on the product and the situation. But that's how they are able to do that and keep your money 100% safe while allowing you to participate in some of the returns that you're getting from the stock market.
Okay, that makes sense. And knowing that these index products, the indexed universal life, as well as the indexed annuities, are driven by insurance, are there any tax benefits to either product?
Great question. So the quick answer for annuities is that, the annuities grow tax deferred. So if you put money into an annuity and you make, $120 of interest in the first year, I'm just picking a number. Hopefully it'll be more than that. $120 of interest in the first year, you don't have to pay tax on that interest. You can wait until you go to pull the money out down the road, and then you pay tax on it when you pull it out. Now, the trade-off for that is you have to wait until you're 59 and a half before you can pull the money back out. Now, you can transfer it to another annuity down the road if you want, but you have to leave it in an annuity vehicle until age 59 and a half to take advantage of that tax deferral. You can also, if you have a Roth IRA, some people have Roth 401ks from their job and they leave that job and they need to roll that into a vehicle. You can roll that into an indexed annuity and you will still be able to pull that money out completely tax-free because it's a Roth, but you get the safety of never having to lose any money in the bad years and get the share of the gains in the good years, and then pull that money out tax-free. So those are some of the tax advantages that you might see associated with annuities. But my favorite thing to talk about when it comes to index products would be the tax advantages that we have with indexed universal life. Now, This is life insurance, okay? And so right away, sometimes when you mention life insurance and you're talking about it as an investment vehicle, people immediately start looking for the door. They say, oh, life insurance, I want to keep my insurance and my savings separate. I don't like the idea of saving money in my life insurance. Well, hold on your potatoes for a minute, just calm down, because life insurance is actually, if you're using indexed universal life and you're using the right carrier, which we specialize in here at Equus Financial, we've chosen insurance companies that have developed the best products out there in the marketplace right now. We have insurance companies, William, that beg us to bring their products to the marketplace. And sometimes we refuse them because we don't think those products are worthy of what our customers should see. So we're very careful. And if you choose the right product, here's something that's very interesting about, insurance. The cost of the insurance, because, if you're putting $100 a month or $500 a month into an insurance policy as an investment vehicle, some of that money that you're putting in is going to get eaten up by the cost of the insurance, because if you die, it pays a death benefit. And then whatever's left over goes into a savings account that's inside the policy that the customer can access tax-free down the road. Now, when I say down the road, I just mean within a couple of years. You don't have to wait till you're 59 and a half. Now, some people say, well, I don't want to invest my money in a vehicle where it doesn't all go into the savings account. I don't like the idea that some of it gets eaten up by the cost of the insurance. Well, just keep in mind a couple of things. First of all, the reason there's a cost of insurance there is because there's a big death benefit that, if you die tomorrow, you may have only paid in a couple of $100 in premium, but your family could be getting a couple of $100,000 in tax-free death benefit. So therefore, there is a cost for that. But just understand that the cost of insurance is better than the cost of taxation, because when you're pulling the money out of permanent life insurance down the road, there's no federal or state income taxes. It's not reportable as income by the insurance company. There's no FICA, no Medicare tax, no Obamacare tax. It's not treated as income for Social Security offset purposes. It's not subject to required minimum distributions or ERISA. And so it's not subject to alternative minimum tax calculations. So when you're looking at the fact that you're saving all of this money in tax, we find that indexed universal life is actually one of the best, if not probably in most cases, the absolute best distribution vehicle that there is out there. Now, let's also think of something else. If we're going to have that conversation of pulling money out tax-free from a particular investment down the road, just understand that we have a debt problem in this country. And I was just looking, William, before we started our call. Right now, our country is $27.5 trillion in debt as of this very moment.
Wow.
When we started 2020, before the pandemic, we were $23 trillion in debt. So we added $3.5 trillion of debt in less than 1 year. And that's a huge problem. And, we throw out numbers like trillion and people think, okay, well, billions, trillions, whatever, they don't need to, we lose sight of how big a trillion really is. So here's a question for you. How many seconds ago do you think it was, or let me say it this way, let me say it a different way. How many years ago do you think it was 1 trillion seconds ago? Now, anybody that's watching this recording, just come up with a figure real fast. 1 trillion seconds ago, what year was that? How many years ago was that?
1 trillion?
Think,
I have no
1
idea.
trillion seconds. What do you think?
I have no idea.
Yeah, and most people don't. People think, oh, was that 1982? Was it 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue? When was it? It was 30,000 years ago.
Wow.
And so that's 1 trillion seconds. We are $27.5 trillion in debt as a country. So that's a huge problem right now. And that means that, we're going to have to pay for that at some point in the future. Now, also understand, we've got Social Security that we've been hearing about is going to be insolvent or has financial problems. I've been hearing about that for 20 plus years. Well, Social Security is something that's near and dear to all of us because we have to pay Social Security tax on our wages every year. But, we used to get those statements in the mail, and all the way back, we don't get them anymore. We got to go online to see what our Social Security benefits would be if we were to retire, or if we were to die, or things like that. But all the way back in 2009, when they used to send these statements out to us, it told us right there on the statement, I'm going to read this. It said, in 2017, we will begin paying more in benefits than we collect in taxes. Without changes, now 2017 is come and gone, by the way, right? Without changes, by 2041, the Social Security Trust Fund will be exhausted, and there will be enough money to pay only about 78 cents for each dollar of scheduled benefits. So we've got this massive debt problem and all of these stimuluses that have been passed to try and keep the economy flowing, keep American families from going bankrupt during the pandemic. We've got a social security problem. And so what does that mean is going to happen to our taxes in the future? If we have this massive reckoning coming, there's only two ways that the government can combat all of this debt. One is the government can spend less. And of course, I chuckle when I say that because we see that they're never going to spend less. They fight over deficit spending, and they still, they have government shutdowns, and they're still spending more by the time they come to an agreement than what they're bringing in revenue. And so the only other way is to increase taxes. And that seems like, and every time I've asked a client, William, over the last 10 years, do you think taxes are going to be higher in the future, or do you think they're going to be lower? People tell me that they think taxes will be higher. And if you look at tax brackets over the years, we are in one of the lowest ever tax rates of the last century. So it's not conceded. If you go back and look at the highest tax bracket, Google it, back right around after World War II, in that era there in the 40s, the wealthiest people in our country were paying about 94 cents of tax for every dollar they made, and were keeping about 6 cents of every dollar that they earned. And we think that we might not pay 50 or 60% tax when we go to retire down the road. I mean, that's a realistic possibility with $27.5 trillion of debt looming over our country right now. So what can we do if we don't want to get, here? Well, let's back up for a quick second. Where does everybody save their money right now? Everybody saves their money in their 401ks or maybe a 403b. And, you're saving your money in places where it's tax deferred. And people say, well, save in tax deferred accounts because when you go to pull that money out when you retire, taxes will be lower. Well, that was good advice 20 or 30 years ago. That was perfect advice. But you know what? For somebody like myself that's 45 years old, I don't think taxes are going to be lower when I go to retire when I'm 65, 70, 75 years old, whatever that might be. I don't think taxes are going to be lower. I don't think taxes are going to be lower for anybody that goes to retire more than 5 or 10 years from now. And so where can we save money so that we're not paying all this tax? Because if you have a 401k, you've got a partner in that 401k. You've got a partner that you didn't even realize is sharing in your account, and that partner is called Uncle Sam. Right. And if you have saved $1 million in your 401k, you might have really only saved $500,000. You might really only have $500,000 in there because Uncle Sam might just take half of that when you go to retire. Certainly under the way it works right now, he's going to take probably about 30% of it under current tax brackets, and give or take a little bit. So you haven't saved as much money as you thought you've saved if you're putting it in those kind of tax deferred retirement accounts. So that's one of the reasons why we love indexed universal life, because not only does it allow you not to lose any money in those years like we were just talking about a minute ago when the market goes down, but it is also one of the three only places that you can put money and pull it back out tax-free in the future. By the way, those three places are municipal bonds, which we typically scratch right off the list because muni bonds aren't very well diversified, and they're not going to make you the kind of return in most cases that you're looking for on a long-term basis to save for retirement. So normally we scratch those right off the list. Then you've got your Roth IRAs or Roth 401ks, which are fine. Those are great. If you have a Roth 401k option through your job, look into that. That's certainly better than you're not going to get a tax deduction. It's not going to lower your taxable income by putting into a Roth 401k, but certainly you can pull that money out tax-free. So that's certainly worth looking at. Roth IRAs, there are income restrictions. You can make too much money to even be allowed to contribute to a Roth IRA. And if you don't make too much money, you can only put in $6,000 a year if you're under the age of 50, or $7,000 a year if you're 50 or older. So you're limited on how much you can save in a Roth account, but they're still not a terrible option. The third option, and it just so happens is a great option, is permanent life insurance. And that's for all the reasons that we just discussed, gives you the ability to pull the money out of the cash account tax-free down the road. But if you pass away before you get there, even though your cash account might only have a few $100,000 in it, you might have quite a few $100,000 of death benefit, more in there that will pay out to the beneficiary tax-free. So those are the reasons why we like indexed universal life. But there is one gotcha to those. And that is, William, You got to health qualify. You can't have it if your health is poor. That would preclude you from being able to get it. But if you're healthy and you've got at least 15 to 20 years to put away and save for the long run, an indexed universal life account is one of the best places that you can save money for retirement. And I'm not saying put all your money in one, but it should be considered an asset class, a place where you certainly keep some of your money as you're looking to retire.
Now, on that note of health, you had mentioned they have to qualify for this particular plan. Tell us a little bit about living benefits and how they tie into universal life products.
You know, that's one of the best kept secrets with an indexed universal life are the living benefits. And so, you know, most people don't realize, William, that there is life insurance out there that you don't have to die to use. Most people think that when they have life insurance, the only way they're going to get any benefit of it is that, well, they won't, that when they die, their family will get the benefit. It'll go to the spouse or the children or whoever the beneficiary is. That life insurance is for the living that survived the person that passed away. So really, people think of life insurance as death insurance. Well, with living benefits, it really puts the life back into life insurance because it gives the person that's insured the ability to be able to access that death benefit money while they are still living if they have certain health conditions. So most of our indexed universal life products have a terminal illness benefit, which allows if you're diagnosed terminally ill, and depending on the product, if you've got a year or two before you're expected to pass away, that would trigger the benefit and the insurance company would pay out a very large chunk of your death benefit to you right there on the spot. And then you can use that money for whatever you want to use it for. So let's say you're terminally ill and you can't work. You know, not only is your family worried about losing you to your terminal illness, and that's an upsetting thing in and of itself, but then they're also worried about how are we going to pay the bills around here without dad's income? You know, we're going broke because dad can't work. And, you know, by the time he does pass away and we get the life insurance money, we could be in really bad financial shape around here. Now, that's a bleak picture. I don't like talking about that, but that's the reality of what some families are really going through right now. So with the terminal illness benefit, it pays out that death benefit, a big chunk of it while you're still alive. And then the family can get benefit of that money and use that however they need to stay financially afloat and keep you comfortable while you're terminally ill and probably in your final days. Now, a lot of these policies also come with a chronic illness benefit. William, I don't know about you, but I've had a number of grandparents that have had to go into a nursing home over the years. Luckily, I haven't had any parents get anywhere near that yet, but I had a lot of grandparents. And I remember all my grandparents are gone now, but I remember when both my wife had one grandma left and I had one grandma left. And we would go see them in their different nursing homes. And my wife and I would always say to each other, you know, I hope I never end up in a place like this. You know, nobody really has a goal of ending up in a nursing home someday. And so, you know, even though these were very nice facilities and they were very well taken care of, no one really wants to end up in a place like that. So most of these indexed universal life products have a chronic illness benefit on them that if you get to a point in your health where you can't take care of yourself, you need to go into a nursing home or hire care to come into your own home to take care of you, the insurance company will allow you to receive a massive acceleration of your death benefit without having to have actually died. And you can use that to help pay for your care. So for those people like me that didn't want to end up in a nursing home, what that can do is that can actually allow you to be able to use that money for to pay for in-home care instead of having to go into a nursing home. It could literally be the difference, or just making sure you have enough money with your other savings to be able to afford a nursing home if that's the true place that you need to be without having to go on Medicaid and deplete all of your assets to satisfy Medicaid. So this just gives you extra flexibility and additional ways that you can use that death benefit without having to have died. Now, the third option that comes in a lot of these products, and it's the most commonly used, is the critical illness benefit. Okay. Now, critical illness is going to usually cover things like heart attack, stroke, and cancer. Those are the most common three that trigger a critical illness claim. But a lot of policies will cover things like, blindness, Lou Gehrig's disease, kidney failure, things like that. Okay, so so there's usually 10 or 13 different triggers that are covered under a critical illness benefit. Although again, usually heart attack, stroke, cancer are the most common. So let's say you suffer one of those. Let's say it's cancer. You're diagnosed with cancer. We all know somebody that was diagnosed with cancer and it financially devastated them. I've never met anybody that told me they didn't know of at least one person that went through that. And so you're diagnosed with cancer and you need to miss a lot of time away from work to go get chemotherapy, radiation, maybe surgery to be able to battle this cancer. Well, the last thing you want to do is burn up all your vacation days. And maybe, if you have any disability money, disability never pays all of your income anyway. The last thing you want to do is be under financial pressure that you've got to rush back to work, even though you're not feeling well, even though you're still healing, even though you're still receiving treatments. You don't want to have to rush back to work to keep your family financially afloat while you're suffering with the illness. You want to be able to take your time, get the treatments you need, and then get back to work when you're fully healthy and ready to do so. So being able to accelerate a big chunk of your death benefit while you're still alive to help pay for all of these treatments or keep you afloat, you use the money however you want, it doesn't matter, is hugely important and gives you the best opportunity to win the battle that you're fighting with cancer or heart attack, stroke, whatever it might be. William, I saw a statistic, and I don't remember the exact figure, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% of all bankruptcies that are filed in the United States are filed because the family suffered some kind of a critical illness, because of medical expenses that were related. And did you know that 80% of those people had health insurance? 80% of the people that file a medical bankruptcy have health insurance, but they still had to file bankruptcy anyway. Why is that? Well, that's because there are co-pays, there are deductibles, there are all these different expenses. There's lost time from work. All of this adds up and can really destroy a family's financial picture. You're just cruising along thinking everything's good. I'm saving good money. I'm going to retire in 5 years. One little cancer diagnosis can derail all of that. But living benefits in your indexed universal life insurance policy can be the saving grace that you need. You can get that death benefit, get that money out of that policy when you need it most while you're still living. Use it and keep yourself on track to be able to retire financially free. So that's why I absolutely love indexed universal life as an asset class for families, William, because you have the ability to save money in a place where you'll never lose a penny of it, regardless of what happens in the stock market. But you can beat those darn low fixed rates that we're going through right now and get gains that are linked to the stock market, like the S&P 500 or other indexes, the NASDAQ, other indexes that are out there that are being tracked. Okay. Then you've got the ability to pull the money out tax-free and avoid the major tax problem that so many of us are going to have when we go to retire, when tax rates go up to pay for all of this debt that our country's in. But if something happens along the way and you have that critical illness or that heart attack, stroke, cancer, or something along the way, you've still got access to the death benefit money ahead of time. So when you look at all of the different ways that an indexed universal life policy can help someone, we call it the Swiss Army knife of retirement planning, because it's got all of these different ways that you can use it and benefit from it. You don't just have to die to use it. And
Right.
That's really, it just gives you a huge bang for your buck. You get so much value for what you put into it. And if I've learned anything in working with customers over the last 21 years that I've been in this business, it's that middle America is looking for value. They're not always looking for the cheapest thing out there. They're not always looking for the most inexpensive thing out there. They're looking for the thing that is going to give them the most bang for their buck, the best value. And when you look at indexed universal life, you absolutely cannot beat the value that it provides and the bang for the buck that you receive for what you're putting into it.
Excellent. Well, again, I appreciate you being with me today, Bill, and all the information that you shared. This is William Knoll and Bill Martin with Equus Financial. And if you would like an illustration, please contact me. The contact link will be listed below, and Bill and I can work up an illustration for you to show you how our index products can help. Thanks again. Bye.